This is Power Athlete Radio. With your hosts, Denny K, Professor Booty, and the Luke Summers. And now, toes forward, hips locked, shoulders set, and retract those scapulars. It's time for some knowledge bombs.
Thanks for tuning into Power Athlete Radio. This week we have special guest Baker Leavitt.
What in the fuck are y'all talking about?
There he is. It's merely impossible to be into CrossFit and not have heard of Baker. He is the informal mayor of the entire internet and one of Killcliffe's fearless leaders. Baker is blessed with a charisma that allows him to wear many hats, and aside from assisting in Killcliffe's quest for world domination, he is also involved in many other facets of the company. Topping the list, of course, is sponsoring fitness competitions, promoting athletes, and giving back through the Navy SEAL Foundation. Get to know this Georgia native a bit more as he and John toss hunting stories back and forth for what turned out to be an extensive portion of this conversation. So if you like movie references, shit-talking, shooting animals, all while over-consuming Killcliff, stay tuned because this episode has it all. This is 118.
What's happening, Power Athlete Nation? Welcome to another episode of Power Athlete Radio. This is Denny. I'm here with John, Luke, and Callie. And our guest today is Baker, the man with one name.
Well, a man like Baker needs no introduction, so technically we should just start the conversation.
We'll just roll right into it. So, Baker, how you doing, man?
Good. I'm sitting here in Seattle with Callie. I just found out that Callie lives in my city, which has just made my life a lot easier.
That's
really
very
excited.
important. Baker's been texting me asking for her address for like 3 months.
I'm serious.
I haven't given it to her.
Bakersville, Seattle.
He should have texted me. I would have sent it to him within seconds.
Well,
I know where she lives now.
Yeah. Baker and I were talking before the show, and I was telling him that I'm always shocked when no one, like when I mention his name and someone doesn't know who he is. And it's always shocking, and it's like you think that person potentially has never been on social media or is not involved in CrossFit in any way. So it's rare, but there are a few people still out there whose lives he hasn't touched.
What I'm kind of curious to know is how come he gets to sit like right next to you for the show, and this is like a first time, so I'm trying to find the connection here.
Well, let's have if we could think of like one person kind of like a movie wise that you would relate Baker to.
Jabba the Hutt.
Jabba the Hutt. I was gonna go with like the wolf from Pulp Fiction.
Definitely.
Because like if there's anybody out there that needs to get anything done in the CrossFit world,
Call Baker.
It's like, hey, call Baker, because Baker knows a guy who knows a guy who killed a guy who owes him a favor.
It's a combination of the wolf from Pulp Fiction and Violator, Lou Thoman from the movie Hot Tub Time Machine.
We know who Violator is. We're all big Hot Tub Time Machine.
Did you see Hot Tub Time Machine too?
No, I didn't see the second.
It was sucked.
It was awful, except for the end. The closing credits were amazing, but it was just stupid. The first one was one of the funniest movies ever made.
Yeah, I mean, even though John Cusack didn't have like his best role in that, I think he was really the glue that held that whole thing together.
I think it's fair to say.
The first one.
I think it's fair to say that a lot of people probably didn't give the movie a chance because the name is awful. Like, you just think it's going to be awful. But that movie is epic. I mean, that is a cult classic for sure.
It's amazing. I love it.
Well, usually we try to wait till the end of the show to talk about favorite movies, but...
Well, that's not a favorite. That's just one of them.
Yeah, that's true. That's just one of them. But essentially, Baker, will you give us a little background on kind of who you are, your involvement with Killcliff, and also like your background before Killcliff?
So, worked for Killcliff. Killcliff was started in January 2011. and I was in New York City going to school up there, and I came across Todd, who started and founded Kill Cliff, and this was in May of 2011, and God damn it, phone won't stop.
He's a popular man.
And just kind of started working. I was the fourth person at the company, and wound up investing in it, and just started working, and it's just been a wild ride ever since then. We just made the Inc. 500, which is a list for fastest growing privately held companies in the United States, and we were ranked 103 out of 5,000, and then we were the number 4 fastest growing privately held company in the food and beverage sector, and then we were the number 1 fastest growing privately held beverage company in America, which is really, really cool, because when I first started working with Todd, like I don't want to say that I didn't think it was possible, but I just never imagined we'd be where we are today, and it's just kind of it's cool to see, like, putting in a lot of hard work. And John, you talk about this a lot too, with your past in football and and all that stuff, and how you were a hard worker, and if you work hard and bust your ass and work smart, you can accomplish a lot. And it's just kind of a testament to our team and our company and Todd's leadership, and letting people do what they're good at, and just kind of taking off.
What do you think has caused this brand to be so explosive versus other the fit aids out there and everything else? Because it's almost become like a lifestyle brand, don't you think?
We're kind of heading that way. I think it's people. I'll never make any claims about our product. We don't do that as a company. The only thing we say is it tests positive for awesome. And if you drink Kill Cliff and you don't test positive for awesome, that's genetics. Take it up with your parents. It's not our fault. But we don't make any claims. And I think when we started with Kill Cliff, and I started doing the social media and everything for it, I've never been a person that cared a lot about money. Like when I was in real estate years ago, I made a ton of money, and just as quickly as I made it, I lost it. And it just put a really sour taste in my mouth. Focusing on money kind of led myself and tons of other people, in the 2000s, into a bad place. And I just got a bad taste in my mouth. So with Kill Cliff, the goal was never money. I never wanted to get money from people. It was always like, if I could make you smile or I could make you laugh, that was my goal, because that made me feel good. Like, okay, I brought a smile or put a pep in someone's step, or a little pick-me-up throughout the day. And it was kind of me putting my sense of humor out there. John, Luke, Callie, we all have very similar senses of humor, I think. And it's just funny when you can connect with people that have that same sense of humor. Like I met you guys, we hit it off. That was years ago, and that was just kind of the goal. I think it's just in interacting with the people that support our brand, and we always try to engage. Someone comments or likes a post or makes a post about us or sends us a picture. We try to reciprocate that and show our appreciation by engaging with our the community that we've built. And I honest to God, I think that's what it is. We don't run around, we don't talk ill or speak ill of our competition.
And the other thing too, what you're kind of alluding to is you don't take yourselves too seriously.
No.
You're a fucking drink company, just like we're one of thousands of strength conditioning programs out there.
Kelly, we are the
Premier. We are the premier. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, premier. The other thing too is, recently I realized that Kill Cliff had kind of hit it big with that kind of that CrossFit kind of spoof video that just came out that I saw floating around, where the guys are those guys are all of a sudden out of nowhere they start just pounding Kill Cliff, and I was like, oh, Kill Cliff has effectively woven themselves into the fabric of CrossFit, seeing as that now they're getting punned on these deals. So I thought that was pretty good.
That's Matt Best and JT. So the guys behind Article 15. So Matt and Rocco were Rangers, 2nd Battalion Rangers. JT and I don't remember the other guy's name. They were pararescue guys in the Air Force, JTACs and CCTs, and they so they're technically operators in the sense of Hollywood. The way that Hollywood and society defines those types, and they don't sell that. They don't sell the door kicking tactical aspect. That was a part of their background and that's their story, but it's made them who they are today. But those guys are very similar to Kill Cliff. They want to make people laugh. and do really funny stuff, and that's kind of the whole thing. So they're coming out with a movie called Area 15, and I can't go a ton into it. I can talk to you guys about it offline, but it's going to be hilarious. And if you take a second and go look at Article 15 social media and their YouTube channels, I think they've had like 30 million views combined. Like, they're a juggernaut, and they're really cool guys. Like, we met them. JT reached out to me a few months ago through a really good friend, Dean Brantley, who owns Two Vet Arms, which is they make assault rifles. He introduced us, and we just kind of hit it off, and so they told us about this movie they're coming out with, and we're like, yeah, we'd love to be involved. And so we just kind of started working with them and doing some stuff and some collaborations and whatnot. So it's going to be really cool. It's going to be, Luke, you said cult classic with regards to Hot Tub Time Machine. Like, Area 15 will absolutely be a cult classic. It's going to be an awesome movie. And the guy that's directing it is Peter Brinker, I think. I think that's maybe he's like a famous director guy.
Somebody? I don't know.
And they funded. The cool part about it with that film is they wanted to do a crowdfunding to raise awareness for it, and they raised like $1 million to pay for this film. But they already had, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they had the funds to do the movie. They just, a lot of people are using like crowdfunding now to raise awareness, Kickstarter campaigns. And stuff. It's really interesting.
That's smart. That's cool. I know Luke was wondering if you have like a job title for Killcliff. Like, what is your business card?
Do you have an official job title?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I have a couple. So I have, it's kind of a long answer, but my attention span is extremely short. And I need multiple roles to keep me occupied, because I'll start working on something of like, all right, this is bored. I need to work on something else. So, yeah, I mean, if I had a title, it'd be business development. I also cover the Northwest Territory for us, and then, liaison between CrossFit HQ and our headquarters in Atlanta, and just, try to make cool stuff happen and hang out with cool people and, connect the dots. That's what I really like to do, is connect the dots and create relationships and see how relationships can be mutually beneficial between Killcliff and other companies. Like, we're doing a bunch of stuff now with Leupold Optics and Kimber, and just neat companies that are willing to reciprocate and, spread the word.
Speaking of new stuff with Killcliff, Luke, did you get a chance to try like the cold brew stuff? I know that they premiered that at the games. Did you try that?
Yeah, we drank a lot of it.
Yeah.
At the games, it was pretty funny. So Killcliff had their big, monstrosity of a booth, and all of a sudden I just kind of rolled over and got behind the counter and just started handing stuff out. And Todd's like, dude, you're supposed to be charging for that stuff. And I was like, you're kidding.
We're paying it forward.
He's like, no. He's like, seriously, dude, I think we're charging for that stuff. I'm like, are you sure? He's like,
I thought they were going to premiere the cold brew because there was like so much hype about it, with like dropping down like a hot air balloon in the middle of like the stadium.
We had that. We had a 30-foot tall laser cat that you filled with helium and ran on tanks all day, and we were going to fly that above our booth. But HQ didn't like that idea, so we.
Listen, I should be the marketing guy. Here's what you do, okay? You go above restricted airspace. You drop cans of Killcliff with little parachutes on them all over that stadium. I'm talking 1,000 cans.
1,000? I would have like 100,000.
Listen,
cans.
Here's the experience. People are cheering with their hand in the air, and a Killcliff just parachutes into it. And then they open it, chug it, and they buy a case right there.
We also come from, our business model has always been it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
No,
so I wouldn't necessarily get Luke to be your liaison for ideas like that.
Kelly, that's just not a business model. That's kind of a life mantra that I've adopted. So I mean, I've long just been asked for forgiveness. Like, I'm sorry,
I didn't know I couldn't do that.
Yeah, really.
Interesting though. One thing I've learned is. So Killcliff, we have 38 employees now, full-time employees with insurance and all that great stuff. And, Luke, what you just said was a terrible, terrible idea. Really a horrible idea.
No, I don't think so.
What I've learned is that the best ideas normally start off and come from the worst ideas.
So you're saying I have a chance?
No, what I'm saying is that don't ever let anyone censor you.
Yeah. Always say yes, right? Isn't that what John said? Always say yes and just figure out a way to do it.
Make it happen.
Yeah, like, hey, it sounds good. Let's do it. Awesome. I don't know how we're going to make it happen, but let's make it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Baker, let's talk about something a little more a little more serious. Let's talk about hunting.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right. So I know. All right. So you are not only a bow hunter, but you are also a rifle hunter. So you hunt both medians.
I started with hunting with a rifle.
So, but you've progressed into bow hunting, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. What would you say is your best hunting experience to date with rifle and bow, and also what kind of bow do you shoot?
And you can't say human.
What do you say?
Yeah, is human targets, or what are we talking?
So my favorite hunting experience with a rifle. It's a really good question. I'm actually really glad you asked that. So we also have to throw in a shotgun into this, John, because shotgun is for birds. My best hunting experience with a shotgun, I would say, was last year, or 2013 in Nebraska, when I reaped in two birds, which is I took a tail fan and crawled up over this ridge, a tail fan of a turkey, and held it in front of my face, and these two turkeys saw it. Thought I was another male trying to come in their space, and they charged me.
Classic.
And I dropped both of them with one shot.
Nice. What kind? Like pheasant, you said?
Turkeys.
Oh, turkeys.
And the interesting part about that, what made that so special, we had been hunting for 2.5 days with zero luck. We hadn't seen any gobblers. It was awful. We were sold a bill of goods. We went to this property thinking it was one thing. We got there and it was the polar opposite of what we were told it was. So, and then me reaping in those two birds, fanning them in, set things in motion that turned that trip into one of my favorite hunting trips of all time. So it was awful. It was awful. It was awful. And then we had one thing happen, and it changed everything about the trip, and then it was on. That was my favorite hunting trip with a shotgun. My favorite hunting experience with a rifle would have to be in Africa in 2003. The first time I ever shot a muzzle loader, which is a primitive weapon, which is...
Were you in dental school at the time?
Huh?
Were you in dental school at the time?
Dental school?
Dental school?
Yeah, shot Cecil the Lion, right?
Yeah, no, he shot. It wasn't Cecil. It was Cecil's dad.
Simba.
Oh my God.
Y'all are idiots. So we were. I'd never shot a muzzleloader before. We were driving back to our camp, and it was my turn to shoot. My brother had just shot a big old warthog, and we were going back for lunch, and we saw this monstrous warthog. My gun was in a scabbard in the back of the truck, and he said, "Oh my God, oh my God!" So we pulled the truck over, jump out, and my brother goes, "Here, shoot this." And I was like, "I have no clue how to shoot this gun." He goes, "Put this primer in, shoot it like a regular rifle." So did that, jumped down, ran over this berm, and dropped a gold medal warthog. First shot. It was awesome. My favorite hunting experience with a bow was last year at Jeff Tucker's place. I shot my biggest whitetail to date. It was a nice pointer.
Send me that picture. That was a nice. That was a hell of a picture.
Yeah, and I sitting there, and the funny part about that story, he goes, "You can shoot any deer you see out of that stand except this one 9-point that's been coming in." I said, "All right." So I'm sitting in the stand. 45 minutes later, this big 9-pointer comes in, and I was like, "That's obviously the deer I'm not supposed to shoot." Okay. So a few minutes later, this 8-point comes cruising in. Drop him. Go run and grab Jeff. Gut it, clean it, take it to the processor, call the taxidermy, all that stuff. Then we're back at Jeff's that night having dinner. And he brings in a screenshot, a photo he printed from a trail cam of the 9-point he told me not to shoot. He goes, "So you saw this deer?" And I said, "No, that's not. I didn't see that 9-pointer. That 9-pointer has a crab claw."
Different one.
And he goes, "Oh, well, hell, you should have shot that other one then." And I was like, "Well, shit." That's already come and gone. So
yeah.
That's those are my 3 favorite experiences with hunting. But some of my best hunting experiences and memories have come from trips that weren't successful, rating success based on harvesting an animal. I mean, for me, it's not about the kill; it's the process, start to finish. Planning a trip. I love planning hunting trips. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do. Getting my friends excited about it, getting everybody worked up, and the laughs you create and the memories, and it's awesome. And harvesting an animal is, at the end of the day, is kind of the bonus to the trip. But for me, it's the process. I really enjoy the process of hunting and all that stuff. And it's like all this stuff's going on with Cecil the lion and this dentist and anti-hunters, and I could sit down with an anti-hunter and educate them on the benefits of hunting and win every aspect of the argument. Hunting licenses and fees pay for conservation. If you want to preserve something, you place a value on it. But the one thing with hunting that's hard to justify to anti-hunters, and that's the one thing you can never get past, is the actual taking of an animal's life. And that's the one thing that that hunters have problems with versus anti-hunters. At the end of the day, you are harvesting an animal, and a lot of people don't understand that. But just the process and eating providing meat for yourself and your family, and knowing where your food came from, like that's the ultimate. It's awesome.
Well, I mean, if you go back and you look at really Teddy Roosevelt set up the conservation in this country, and a big part of the conservation was controlled hunting to keep the populations low. Like when they didn't have that, actually the populations of animals ended up going the other way because there was no competitive predators. I mean, it's pretty amazing if you look at like how that whole thing kind of just the kind of the history of it. Anybody that's ever done any hunter safety classes or ever done anything, they teach pretty well about it. So it's definitely something that I enjoy doing, and I always enjoy hearing some stories about it. I mean, everybody always has these pretty epic stories, and I know Baker's got some opportunities to really hunt in some great places.
Is there any would there be any value to kind of play like devil's advocate to be able to, I don't know, dart an animal, use almost like a blank or something that puts them out, and then you can.
They dart rhinos in Africa.
Okay, so it's similar. You go through the same process of for instance, fishing, where you can throw back whatever just for the sport of it type thing.
Catch and release.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, so. If you want to, so that which gets counted gets managed, okay? And if they outlawed elephant hunting in Botswana a few years back.
God damn it.
And guess what doesn't exist in Botswana anymore? Elephants. There's no elephants. And then you look at other, and you have to do population control because an elephant eats 200 pounds a day of foliage. And if, let's say you've got a 10,000 hectare piece of property. A hectare in Africa is 2.47 acres. And that piece of property can only sustain 200 elephants. Mm-hmm. So you have to manage the population because here's what most people don't know about elephants. Elephants don't have any predators. And when they die of natural causes, that natural cause is starvation. So what happens, an elephant, it gets to an age where it doesn't have any teeth and it can't chew food. So it starves to death. So there's just a lot of stuff with hunting that a lot of people and you can't expect them to know because they don't do it.
I didn't know that.
And then if you look at the wolf issue, they reintroduced wolves in the Pacific Northwest a few years ago in some states, and the population is out of control. I mean, there's some elk herds in Idaho that have been dropped by 50 to 60%.
Wow.
Because the wolves haven't been kept in check.
Well, and also wolves have no natural predators.
Right, and the thing about wolves that sucks is that wolves, when they hunt an animal, they don't kill it. It's death by consumption. So they take out its hamstrings. They run it till it's exhausted and it can't move anymore, and then they just start eating it. Mm-hmm. They don't go for the neck or the skull. They take the hamstrings and the ass, and that's where they start. And it's
How do wolves die then? Do they die of old age, like starvation?
So
pretty much.
The issue with hunting and anti-hunters is, so it's a phenomenon, it's called charismatic megafauna. And what charismatic megafauna means is when people think of your childhood and all the Disney movies and all the cartoons you've seen and the calendars that are passed out in school and hanging up on walls and stuff, and you got to think of the animals that are on those calendars: lions, tigers, wolves. You don't ever see ducks or turkeys or pheasants, and
Yeah.
so and lions, and it's things like that people associate childhood memories and human characteristics with, like.
But it's completely unrealistic. It's a caricature of what an animal actually is.
And it all started in 1969 when Walt Disney created the movie Bambi. How did that movie end? What happened to Bambi's parents?
They got killed by the hunter.
That's when the anti-hunting. If you want to pinpoint one thing that created the anti-hunting movement, it would be Bambi, the movie.
Playing off our emotions.
Yeah, but people get upset about this dentist that killed a lion. No one gives a shit about a deer that was shot.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're dropping a video tonight of a turkey hunting film, a short film. No one's going to be upset about it.
I thought it was because like those animals, and correct me if I'm wrong, are more there's a smaller population, so they're more susceptible to like being an endangered species and things like that.
So everyone's saying, oh, he killed an endangered species. Lions aren't endangered.
Yeah, I didn't think
not
so,
at all.
but like elephants and like
they're not. No.
Okay.
So that word gets thrown around a lot, and if you look at like I said, it's you have to population control. Like you have to manage wildlife because conservation and wildlife management, like it protects the animals, and in Africa, like you get rid of hunting, guess who? Then you can't have anti-poaching organizations, and you can't pay the guys to go out and protect these animals.
Yeah.
They paid. I want to say legal hunting in Africa last year was something like $200 million.
Yeah.
Yep.
We went hunting a couple months ago up on a friend's property up in Central California, and I stayed at his hunting lodge on his property, and he has hunted and taken every single large mammal on the planet. I mean, literally his everything from an elephant to you walk into this hunting lodge and you're like, dude, I've only seen pictures of these elephants. I mean, of these animals. I mean, he has everything. So.
Was it Ted Nugent?
No. This guy's just he's a wealthy dude, and that's been his passion, is basically traveling the world and hunting. And I asked him about his elephant, and he said that actually they paid a pretty significant amount of money to go out, and they went out and shot this old bull that, like Baker said, didn't have his teeth and was on its way out. And so
exiled from the herd.
Yeah. So basically what happens is once they get to that point, they exile them. And so he took that old bull, and he goes, as they went down, he goes, out of nowhere, there was like 25 different tribes came out of the woodwork.
Oh, yeah.
And literally took every piece of this animal. He goes, literally, he ended up with the skull and the tusks. Every other piece of that bull was dissected, taken, and was gone within about 6 hours. And the whole thing was gone and fed hundreds of people. And like the money he paid that went to this. I mean, as I was listening to him, I was like, man, that's why you think like it's a beautiful animal, but I mean it's at the end of its life cycle, and here's a situation where he comes in, and I think it was $25,000-$50,000 that he paid, and it fed a lot of different animals or a lot of different people, and was definitely pretty amazing to see. I mean, I had some reservations because I'm sure everybody's been to the circus, which is also pretty horrible, but seeing those kind of majestic animals. But when you hear kind of the whole backstory behind it, it's like we were up hunting on his property because he has cattle and alfalfa and a lot of different things up in his farm in Central California and his ranch, and everything is decimated by pigs. So the pig population is so robust, and I think like a female sow has like 15 little piglets at a time, and they might have 2 or 3 litters a year. I mean, literally, like they hunt those things with extreme prejudice, and it barely controls the population. So when we were up there, he's like, hey, shoot as many as you can see. He goes, we hunt them almost every single day. He has 5 guys that hunt these things on site. If they see them, they kill them, and they can't even dent the population. And they hunt them all year round.
John, so on a wild hog, so at 21 days old, a wild hog begins eating solid food. At 6 months, it goes into heat for the first time in its life. Within 48 hours, it gets pregnant. So the gestation cycle on a wild hog is 90 days. So, I'm sorry, it's 90 days? Or I think it's 90 days. So 90 days. So it gives birth to anywhere from 8 to 16 piglets. Within 24 hours of giving birth, it goes into heat again. All right? So it is a vicious cycle. Like if you think of the lifespan in the downline from one sow, it gives birth 2 to 3 times a year. So if 3 times in a 15-month cycle, it gives birth 3 times, and
sounds fucking awful.
If you don't kill 8% of your hog population every year, they will overrun you. That's how far you have to stay ahead of them. And then, with regards to the elephants, John, so if you fly into Johannesburg, South Africa, and then you take a puddle jumper to East London, and you head north to Tanzania, I could put Callie in a car and drive from East London up to Tanzania. Callie's never been hunting, have you?
Just pheasant hunting once.
Okay, so Callie, no knowledge of hunting, could tell me the communities that we drove through, which ones hunting was involved in and which ones there was no hunting involved, because the communities that are near hunting operations are thriving. People have jobs, they have schools, the kids have food to eat, there's money in the community, and there's just an overall happiness. Whereas communities where there is no hunting involved or anywhere near that, it's desolate. It's just there's nothing there. And then like people, he shot that lion in Zimbabwe. The unemployment rate in Zimbabwe is 90%. Think about that. 90%. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
So John, when are we gonna go hog hunting?
Good, I'm down. I pulled an elk tag, a California elk tag.
No shit.
Yeah, so I was on a lottery and ended up pulling an elk tag. So I get to go shoot a female up here, and I think I go in late September, early October. So I was on a list, and I mean they only issue a few of those a year. So I was pretty excited to get that, and we'll go out and get one. And I actually, when we were up there hunting the pigs, same property, I was able to kind of scout it, and they had some really, really beautiful big males, and I spotted a couple of them. I mean, they were 1,000 yards away. I mean, they'll be 700-800 yard shots. But when I had a pretty epic deal where we literally took a Jeep and we kind of drove in the back and we kind of dropped in behind it had to be a herd of probably about 25 pigs and maybe about 40 little piglets, and we snuck up on them, and I sent you the pictures. I took those two big male and big female.
What did they weigh?
I want to say pre-dressed, they were right around 300 pounds apiece. So I took 600-pound a hog, and then I think I ended up with, because one of my buddies didn't want his, I ended up with over 400 pounds of meat.
Yeah, so that picture you sent me, I posted that on my social media, and like it's one of my favorite photos, hunting pics I've ever been sent. And the interesting part about it was I had to explain to people who John was, that, hunting friends that don't do CrossFit or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I just want all of you to know that this guy was an offensive lineman in the NFL for 10 years. He's like close to 300 pounds. Look how big his thigh is, and then look at the pigs. And they were like, oh, okay, I get it now. And I was like, yeah, he's not just like some regular guy. I was like, those are monsters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, they were big pigs. I mean, the better part, though, I mean, I've hunted pigs in Texas, and those were probably actually my favorite shot in the world that I took was we were at a pig hunt in Texas, and I'm sitting in this little stand that's on a ground, and it's in the dried River Creek. And so I'm sitting in there, and we're hunting at night, and I basically have a night vision kind of a PVS 14 kind of deal on the rail of my rifle, and I got like an LMT MWS 308. So I'm sitting in there. It's like 11 o'clock at night. It's pitch black, and I'm kind of looking through through the nods, and all of a sudden I see these two pigs kind of down the river, like the river embankment, and I'm sitting there, and it's me and Rob Wolf are in this little light box in the middle of Texas. It's completely dark, and I'm the only one with any night vision. And I ended up dropping the one hog at, I think, just a little over 300 yards with night vision. So literally one shot, and I watched the thing go down, and I was like, oh my God. Like, because we had lazed everything. I mean, I knew land markers. I kind of had an idea of how far he was, but that was a really good shot. And actually, the same trip, I ended up getting a pretty good-sized deer, and at probably maybe a little over 300, maybe about 350, and I ended up having to hook up a rope and drug it back to the stand, and I literally hooked like this rope up, tied it to its legs, and I did like a sled drag, 300-400 yards with this deer, dragging it through the road, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, good thing we do all those sled drags and work on all that stuff.
Dead weight's a pain to drag. It's really tough. John, did you get to eat any of the hog you shot in Texas?
Oh yeah. No, we dressed them right that day, but there was a big difference when we hung them. We went to skin them. That was the nastiest fucking animal I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was covered in ticks. I mean, it was matted. It was disgusting in Texas.
Yeah.
The pigs that we shot in California looked like somebody had just bathed them. They were perfectly clean. I mean, one of the pigs was so nice that we ended up the taxidermy guy came out and skinned it and turned one of them into a rug. I mean, the thing was blonde. It was just this like most beautiful looking.
Their diet's totally different. In Texas, there's more of a scrounge, like a scavenger, versus like California, they're just inundated with. You shot in the valley, right, California?
Yeah, these things just eat nothing but alfalfa. So, I mean, the meat's been awesome. I mean, these guys have all come over. We've been cooking it, pretty much. We've been living on that and the cow I got. So once I get this elk, I'll replace that in the freezer. And
John, is that what we had? Is that what we had when we were over at your place last?
Oh, yeah.
Porcalypse too.
Yeah, that's why we call it a porcalypse.
I didn't know that. I had no idea.
Yeah, those were the pigs I hunted.
A different experience for you now that you know that, Kelly?
It kind of is. I actually just thought you had bought that pork, but it was it had such a distinct flavor that I remember just thinking like it was unlike any pork that I had ever tasted. But
it's a lot leaner. It's a lot leaner and it has like a better taste. My kids, the bacon that we got from it, because one of the females that I got had just given birth, so she actually had a little bacon, which I was excited about. And my kids absolutely crushed the bacon, whereas it was like pretty overwhelming taste. And I had about 4 hams done. We had a couple smoked hams, and I actually made that, and that came out pretty good. So we'll go back. But Baker, what's that?
You chops?
Oh yeah, we got chops, country ribs. I mean everything. I mean those suckers were really really well. I mean when we dressed them and I skinned them all down and brought them. I mean they were some really really nice looking pigs when I dropped them off at the processor.
That's awesome.
So, but anytime you want to go, dude, I'm down to go. I got that hunt in later in the year for that elk, but I still would like to. I love shooting pigs. It's such a blast.
Yeah. So we need to get you a bow so we can take you down to Tucker's this year. He's sent me some trail cam pics. I mean, Jeff Tucker's got I hunted with Jeff last year twice. Deer hunted, and then we did a turkey hunting trip together, which was really awesome. Had a good time there. But yeah, dude, I'd love to bring a camera crew down to California and get some of those hogs. I've never hunted in California. I'd love to hunt the valley.
Yeah, we could probably do that again. I mean, I'd love to go out there again. So when I lived back in Kansas City, I had a bow, and I used to practice in my backyard. And there was turkeys and a bunch of different stuff. But when I ended up leaving, I ended up selling it. And now I'm regretting kicking myself for selling my bow. I think it was a PSC. It was pretty nice. Yeah, I'd definitely like to get another one.
Technology on bows has really come a long way in the past 10 years.
Well, let's segue to another interest of Baker's, which is something that I know is pretty close to his heart, which is the Navy SEAL Foundation. So tell us about your involvement with that.
So that's that's basically like everything about Killcliff starts and ends with the Navy SEAL Foundation. So when Todd started the company, his goal was to be the biggest donor to the Navy SEAL Foundation. And I know that things like that, when people say stuff like that, it sounds kind of crazy, like, oh, it's just a ploy or whatever. But that's really the truth. Like, we were cutting checks to the Navy SEAL Foundation, in the beginning when we didn't even have money in the bank to cover them. We made a lot of sacrifices. And we're now, so Todd was a SEAL, and then so was Chris Irwin, who's the president of the company. And, that's why the company was started, was to be the biggest donor to the SEAL Foundation. And when we sell the company, they're going to get a huge check from us. So Todd's goal is to give $10 million to the Navy SEAL Foundation. And this year, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's a couple $100,000 we're committed to give to them. I think it's $300. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be saying that out loud, but yeah. So yeah, we're the first for-profit partner that the SEAL Foundation's ever had. And it means a lot to us, for that to happen. It's a big deal for Todd. And, which it means it's a big deal for me, because like Todd is not only my boss, so to speak. I hate to use that freaking word, but he's not only my boss, but he's also a very close friend of mine. And whenever you can help friends accomplish goals, I think it's a big thing. It's a big deal for me. Like if you want to lead, you got to serve. And Todd's done such a great job with our company, and for my personal and professional development, it means a lot to me to help my friend accomplish a goal.
Yeah,
like that.
Something that he deems very worthwhile.
Yeah. So Todd got out of the SEALs, I think, in '97. So okay. Todd went in '91 during peacetime and got out in '97 or '98 during peacetime. So you got to put yourself in that guy's shoes. A few years later, 9/11 happens.
Yeah.
And what you were trained to do, and like I guess all your dreams and what you thought it was going to be like to be a Navy SEAL are happening.
Yeah.
But you're not there.
And it's devastating.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's cool. It really is. It's a really cool.
Do you know like what? Just out of curiosity, what the foundation does? Do they help the families?
Families of fallen SEALs.
Okay, gotcha. That's what I figured.
Their kids and education and taking care of them and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
That's fantastic. They really do a phenomenal job. And if you look at a lot of these, I'm not going to name any names, but there's a lot of other charities that don't really do all that they can.
Yeah, they don't meet that criteria of truly charitable work, and like especially when you think about where the money's being allocated and stuff.
Really multiple six-figure salaries for people, that are running charities, and it's everyone in the Navy SEAL Foundation is connected directly in some capacity to the SEAL community.
That's awesome.
So that's a big thing. That's a big deal for Chris and a big deal for Todd, and like I said, it's a big deal for for our company. It's really cool that we can do that.
That's awesome. I know one thing also you want to talk about, Baker, is you've been, and you just showed me the video before the show, and we actually had a video of Bobby up on our social media recently struggling with the fucking bamboo bar. And I know you were telling me you did, I don't know, like 175 or something, or 170.
Kelsey asked, so I had shoulder surgery in 2012, and like the dummy that I am, I did not do 1 second of physical
rehabilitation.
Not 1 session. And so my range of motion is like 60% and all that stuff. And she asked me, she's like, what do you want for your birthday? And I said, I want a bamboo bar.
Yeah.
That's what I want. And so she got me an earthquake bar, which is, so John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the first generation bamboo bar, they called it a bamboo bar, and then they had one that had a greater capacity, and that was a band bell bar. And then now the one I have is called an earthquake bar, which is up to 300 pounds.
Yeah.
So I got it, worked out with it yesterday for the first time, and like I'm in love with it. Like, I think it's awesome.
Well, what's ironic about that is we actually worked up to 315 on our bamboo bar.
Did you really? See, and yes. I was questioning him because I was like, "There's no way you could do person could do 300 with that."
We did a 1 RM bamboo bar as
fuck up.
I swear to God, fucking around, and it was roughly it worked out to just around 315 pounds, and at that point, like the thing was bending so much that we were kind of like, I hope this thing doesn't break. But
it's like a matter of survival. There's no way to like.
It's self-preservation at that point.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way to gingerly get out of that. Like it's either fucking gonna collapse on your stomach and you lose complete control, or you just survive it. That's a 1 RM bamboo bench. Like that's ridiculous. That's an idiotic thing that only we would do at HQ.
I actually, Baker and I were texting when he sent me the picture. One, you got to use kettlebells because the kettlebell is obviously not as big as a plate, so you can, and the problem is when you start loading more and more plates, you get into bigger plates, they hang too low and you can't get as much range of motion. So you got to obviously use kettlebells. And then the other thing, there's a whole kind of like methodology in terms of how to like stack the bands and get them kind of perfectly set up. I mean, we've gone through a lot of trial and error, but my favorite story with the bamboo bar was the first time I was exposed to it was actually out at Westside with Louis Simmons, and so we were out there playing with it a little bit, and I came home and bought one, and we started using it at least once a week in the training for a long time, and after a while it teaches you how to kind of torque the bar and how to stabilize, and you get real good at it. You start understanding straight bar path, and it just teaches you some very interesting intricacies of the bench press that you just wouldn't normally do unless you used the bamboo bar. So fast forward about a year, maybe a little over a year, I go back out to Westside to visit Louis, and maybe it was about a year. I go back out and jump in. I'm training in their groups, and we were doing a bench press day, and we floor press. And one of the guys, and I hit a nice number. I think I was right around like 505 on the floor press. And one of the guys is like, "Hey, do you want to do some bamboo bar bench with me?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure. Looks like a good time. Is it hard?" And the guy's like, And at Westside, that's like the go. Like, hey, you invite people in the new, like, oh, do you want to try this bamboo bar? And anybody that's ever done it day one, your fucking thing's moving around, and people tend to fucking hurt themselves because it'll catch you in the chin and do a bunch of crazy shit. So instantly we lay down, and the guy does it, and like you always go first, and when you're good at it, you do it perfectly straight, and people look at it and they're like, oh, that doesn't look that hard, and then they lay down and it's completely different. So the guy goes, and then I lay down and I kind of like get it right into perfect position, and I do it just like him, and I put it up, and the guy like looks at me, and I'm like, oh, that felt pretty good. Was that right? And he goes, yeah, let's throw a little more weight on. So we start throwing more weight on. We get to probably right around 200 pounds. And he lays down and does it, and he comes back, and I bang out a whole bunch of reps, and I kind of put it up, and he looks at me, he's like, you've done this before, haven't you? I'm like, yeah. And at that point, he like walked away kind of like a little beaten down that he hadn't got an opportunity to show me up. But it's one of those funny things. Like, and even when I took Bobby and Tex and the guys out there when we went for the Elite FTS deal, we swung by, and of course they were still getting people with the bamboo bar trick. So it's been pretty good. I mean, my favorite memory of the bamboo bar was the day that Nate Austin almost killed himself with the bamboo bar. So Nate brings Nate, one of the guys we train with, he's one of our buddies. He brings the bar down, and as he goes to push, the kettlebell swung on him, and it actually did like a 90-degree parallel shoot, and it hit him in the chin, and it pinned his head because he had his head too far, like he wasn't far enough down on the bench. He actually had his head a little far back. He was trying to cheat it. Yeah. And the thing pinned him, and his head went all the way down, and his head was pinned against the side bottom of the bench press. And I saw it, and he was stuck there, and it was like banging his head. And I started laughing, and we did take it for a second. And he was like screaming, legs are there. We finally lifted off him. And he almost died.
That was the last day he ever bamboo benched.
Yeah, he would never touch it again. And frankly, we shouldn't have let him go. We should have just let him die. It would have just saved us. But I said to Baker, we should do something, like film something where we actually work up. I'll give him a little bit of opportunity to get used to it. We'll come up and do a one-arm bamboo bar bench.
You have your own version of the that same, like, the experience you had at Westside. You do at like Power Athlete too, which is using the camber bar. When I first moved out there, I think I did on a straight bar like a couple of sets at 135, and then you told me to come over. You put 225 on the cambered bar, and you were like, "It's fine, I'll spot you." And you were like, "Just do it for like 5." And I'd never used this bar before, and like it almost fucking buried me. And you basically had to bicep curl my torso, and then you were like, "Oh, like," and that was the first rep. The thing is,
good rep, get him.
Yeah, you were like, just get 4 more, and I'm like, but like
And the best is Callie never showed up to train with us until like 3 years later, and it was at like the 12 where we could go in there and do bicep curls and shit.
Finally, just get myself on a Smith machine.
So we have a 14-inch cambered bar, and that's very, very similar to the bamboo bar in that, like, you set up, you get your hands into position, and you basically go straight up and down, because if there's any swing on the bar, that thing will fucking pin you and shoot you forward. Which is ironic, seeing as Nate almost killed himself using that bar too. He got to the bottom, he fucking dumped his chest, and the whole thing swung forward, and he ran forward, and the bar hit the mono. He continued to go, and the bar shot backwards. And at that point, I was like, wow. At that point, I was like, we shouldn't train with Nate anymore, or maybe we should just kill him early. But he's almost died numerous times.
Poor Nate. So Baker, like, are you going to continue to train with it? Is it
absolutely?
Like,
I can't wait. Like, I'll do it. I'll use it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
I've got to do a bike ride today.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. So tell us what your training's like with that. Explain to him what you're doing with Kelsey with the bike ride.
So I have 2 things going on. So I turned 40 last Thursday, which puts me in the Masters category of USAPL for powerlifting.
And CrossFit, right?
That's what I was going to say. And CrossFit.
Absolutely not. No fucking way. So
why? The Masters CrossFit doesn't look that hard.
Please.
I don't like being out of breath when I work out. Like, let's get that out in the front. So the state record in Washington for USAPL is back squat is 511, bench is 389, and then the deadlift is 589. Total is 1449. So
really, at what body weight?
Yeah.
At what body weight?
USAPL, like, so what happens is you have a lot of guys that like kids or whatnot, they'll go into a gym and they'll get into powerlifting, and it's very rare that you find a powerlifting gym that does USAPL.
Yeah.
Because you've got guys in there running gear, and it's hard for like some 10, 12, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old kid going into a gym and want to do USAPL where it's drug-free, they test you, and you lift on commands.
Yeah.
When they're surrounded by people that make fun of it and, back squat way more than that. But they're doing different stuff.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people just don't do USAPL. So I want to take those records down. There's a meet this Saturday and that I can walk into and get the back squat record for reps. I mean, that'll be easy. Bench and deadlift, I got to work on those because I haven't.
Are you gonna do it? Are you making a formal announcement right now? You're coming out to do that meet on Saturday?
Are you going to it?
No, I'm just saying I'm in your corner, Baker. If you go, I'll bring like.
No, but it's a 5'11" back squat. Like I don't need anybody in my corner. Like I just walk in there and do it and leave. Yeah.
Cole?
Is that with wraps? Or is that just belt?
No, just raw everything.
Raw.
Knee sleeves, belt.
So
that's it. That's all they allow.
Knee sleeves and belt, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't wear knee sleeves.
Okay.
Just a belt.
Okay. A belt around each knee.
No, like a powerlifting belt or like a dress belt?
A 4-inch. It's a JCPenney leather belt, alligator.
Okay. Like
I usually
like
use
a
elastic.
1 inch
Texas belt level.
Yeah.
That would actually help. He can probably push his belly off that thing.
Yeah. So I got that, but at the same time, so Kelsey signed us up to do a 100-mile bike ride to raise money for multiple sclerosis in September.
At one time, over the course of how many days?
One day, one ride.
Wow.
Is it downhill?
No, it's Washington, dude. It's hilly here.
Are you gonna wear a beach cruiser?
No, a road bike.
No.
I used to. I have a S-Works Tarmac. I have a very, very nice road bike.
These guys don't know about any bicycle.
No, I know the Tarmac. That's the one that has the motor on it.
No, that's the one with the bell on the handles.
Oh yeah, that's
the streamers, like Callie's bike.
Okay with you.
You're idiots. So, all right. So I used to race bikes years ago, 2005, 2006 to 2009, 2004 too. So Kelsey's never ridden a road bike. So she signs us up for this 100-miler, and it's like, all right, well, we got to get miles in your legs. And I mean, I haven't ridden a road bike since, it's been 6 years. And so we're trying to average. I'm trying to put 100 miles in her legs each week, and then on the weekends we're going to try to put 40 in on Saturday. And so it's like powerlifting and then teaching her how to ride a road bike. So we started riding. We got her a bike and all that stuff. And like Kelsey just got back from the games. Like her cardio, I don't even have any cardio, and she's obviously in shape. And like I find myself waiting on her on the bike. It's like, okay, speed it up, because these bikes are not designed for comfort, and they're not designed to be ridden slowly. Like the slower you ride these road bikes, the more uncomfortable they are. So it's a kind of a both opposite ends of the spectrum. Powerlifting, 100-mile bike ride.
Well, Baker, we're going to need some photo proof of you riding, because one, I don't know if they make a helmet big enough.
I knew this.
To fit that head.
I knew that when I came on this show that this shit was going to come up.
That your confidence.
Also, riding into a headwind, I mean, they don't call it a headwind for nothing with Baker. Like, that shit was like a sail. I don't know how. I mean, do you have to wear like a shark fin?
I speculate that Baker is going to be drafting off of Kelsey the entire time.
False. Kelsey will, if she can keep up, will sit on my wheel the entire time. There will never be a time when I draft off of her. I'm the better bike rider.
You're just Lance Armstrong. She's just going to ride.
Oh, man. Yeah.
It's gonna
blood doping and all.
It's going to be an experience. It's going to be an experience.
Yeah, you guys.
So wait a minute.
Fast, though?
Wait, so she competed in the games, and her level of fitness isn't good for something like a 100-mile bike ride?
It's just being comfortable on the bike.
Okay, all right. We'll have to hit up Dave Castro about putting that in next year.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see that.
It sounds
be like you have to ride these road bikes.
Yeah, they have a velodrome, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, they should ride road bikes from like Carson to San Diego and back.
They already have the assault bike. It's the same thing, basically.
Could you put miles in the assault bike as a training for that?
No,
because like
what about a spin class? What about a spin class? Could you guys do like spin
off
classes?
the saddle stuff? Off the saddle.
Because when you sit on those bikes, you pedal in squares, and you're not moving yourself. So you're just spinning your legs around.
But they play techno music.
Yeah, you guys.
Have y'all ever done a flywheel? Have you ever done a flywheel?
What's a flywheel?
Like a Soul Cycle flywheel.
I have one time, only once though, because it was horrible. It hurts my butt to sit on that thing.
Yeah, my brothers do that, and I won't do it.
What are you talking about?
The butt, like it hurts your butt. Those seats are very uncomfortable.
It doesn't hurt. You don't sit on it on your ass. You sit on the sandbar.
I never.
Your grundle.
No, maybe I'm not doing it. Maybe I'm not doing it. I'm gonna need like a video tutorial.
Sandbar is the space between the front and the back.
The sandbar. Oh my god.
You know, like when you have low tide and you have the low tide, you have like a tidal pool and then a sandbar in the ocean.
God. No, I get it.
That's what the sandbar is.
I get it. I understand.
Baker, but you probably have like padded gym shorts, right? Or like some form of like padded spandex.
I wear the proper cycling attire.
Yeah.
Tights. I wear the proper. Remember the movie Breakfast Club?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know. I knew the reference as soon as you said it.
Well, most people don't get that shit. They're like, I don't know.
Well, there's also most people listening to this podcast aren't 40 years old.
That's true. We need to get your demographic up there.
I was going to say, you start breaking out like Breakfast Club lines. Like next thing you're going to know, you're going to talk about like miss the bowl, get the horns.
So Baker, what are some of your favorite like movies? I think we like to ask this question because it helps give insight into the person that we're really speaking to.
Hot Tub Time Machine, the movie Snatch.
Never Ending Story.
I'm going to give you guys a very interesting movie that if you like the movie Snatch, you'll love.
Okay.
So the movie Snatch was based on a documentary called East End, British Gangster. So it's a documentary. It is amazing because you see the real-life characters that the characters in the movie Snatch were based after.
Okay.
Like Bricktop, Governor, like it.
The
Gorgeous
Ridiculous.
George. Oh my God! It is so amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
I'm kind of a fan of Rock and Rolla a little bit more. I like Snatch, but Rock and Rolla is one of my favorites.
Yeah, but watch that documentary, East End, British Gangster. That's a great documentary. You'll like it. Those two. It's a tough question to ask.
I know.
Favorite
That's why
movies?
I ask it. I'm about the hard-pressing questions. Serious news that everyone needs to hear. What about like pump up, like a movie, like okay, so not just enjoyable, but like something that gets you like jazzed, like makes you feel like, man, like I want to get like fuck something up,
Vision Quest.
Vision Quest.
The movie Rad.
Running Man.
The movie Rad.
Haven't seen that.
Oh, really? Wow.
The documentary about.
Yeah, when he nails the airwalk, John, or the first try, that gets you fired up.
Dude, that's old school.
Yeah.
Denny chimes in. Finally.
Denny's out there on his BMX bike.
Dude, yeah, man. Like, that has Lori Loughlin in it, the girl from, like, Full House, right?
Do you guys know the dramatic, the soundtrack for the dramatic?
You know, remember what the guy's name was? Crew Taylor, right?
So my buddy Rick was one of the riders in that movie.
Shut
no
up.
way.
I swear it. And, like, he called bullshit on, or I called bullshit on it. And he was like, "You want me to go get my bike?" I was like, "Prove it." All of a sudden, he like pulls out of his closet this like little BMX bike and proceeds to go out the neighborhood and tear it up rad style. I was like, "Oh my God, you were in the movie!" I told you. He's like, "I was like young prodigy professional with this, and I was one of the stunt extras, one of the guys in the crew riding." I was like, "Oh my God, I love that movie."
That movie's right up there with
Gleaming the Cube.
Gleaming the Cube, dude, yeah. Right? Like, this is... you were just talking about, like, 40-year-olds knowing this kind of information, but, like, this was the shit in the 80s.
Luke, is any of this computing with you right now?
100%, and I'd like to add thrashing to that mix.
Thrashing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now so Baker, we had Zach Evanish on, and he knew the movie The Search for Animal Chin.
Hell yes.
All right.
Toy? Fuck yeah.
Dude.
Absolutely.
You just went up a notch on my cool meter.
Oh my God.
Dude, that's back when like in skateboarding, like the ho-ho
was the shit, right? Like Tony Hawk was like 12 years old in that movie.
Huh?
Tony Hawk was like 12 years old in that movie.
Yeah, Caballero and Christian Astor and Tony Hawk and
there you go, the whole Paulo Peralta.
Bones Brigade.
The Bones Brigade.
You guys don't even remember their
freaking half pipe.
Their skate movies, Skate or Die. I don't know if you remember those, but they had all those like skate movies that were kind of like the Warren Miller type movies. And to this day, I still love Warren Miller movies.
Somebody recently asked on the forums, like, hey, does anyone on Power Athletes still like skate? And I mean, I was the only one that really responded, and I was like, no, I don't think so. I think it's like just kind of an extinct. It's a becoming.
There's a connection, right? I mean, like, so the best skateboarding shoes in the 80s were Vans.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right, and Power Athlete and Vans kind of had this mutual love, right?
Well, that's because we're based out of Southern California.
Yeah.
And like, okay, so a little bit of history. When I was a kid, the most coveted shoe was Vans. Even like years later, like it's still like everybody's like, oh, I wanted Air Jordans, all this. It was like checkerboard Vans were like the coolest fucking shoe you could have.
Absolutely.
Well, but in a practical sense, they're built for lateral durability. So if you do any sort of lateral drive off of the shoe, like how a skater would bail, they're just more durable in that sense versus like some of the more popular, we'll just call them trainers. You blow those fuckers out if you do any sort of shuttle runs. You'll blow them out.
We have had numerous people come to our CrossFit football seminar that have twisted ankles, rolled, popped calves, had a lot of injuries. We've had one ACL, and they always come from usually some form of trainer shoe, some
like beat up footwear.
Well, supposedly even brand new shoes that you guys would probably know is what they would consider as like training footwear, and we've seen people bust their ankles, and we've seen a whole host of problems associated with them. The one shoe we've never seen anybody hurt themselves wearing are Vans.
Chucks.
And Chucks, can be a little bit narrow sometimes, and we've had some problems. I know guys have struggled with running, but for the most part, the Vans have always been pretty good.
You're right, John. Those are narrow shoes, and I have pretty small feet, and they still like really are too tight for me.
Yeah, I have one set of Chucks that I got when we were training out at Westside. I went and bought a pair because that's like Louis' official shoe. And I think I wore them, and I was like, God, these things feel so... And I don't have wide feet either, so I ended up wearing Vans. And Louis, I know, was against them a little bit. And then when he looked at them, he was like, oh, okay, they're okay. So he even, he's got some reason for why they love them. But, Vans, they're $35, unless they're my daughter's shoes, which are $36, which doesn't make any sense because they're 1/10 the size. And they're easy to get, and you break them into that perfect point. But I would think of anything I've seen, they're pretty good.
Yeah, let's talk about some stuff that you have coming up in the future, Baker. What's on your agenda for the next few months?
Baker and I's hunting trip. Baker and I are going on several hunting trips.
All right. Besides you girls getting together and finally getting to hang out.
So we have the Granite Games coming up in September, which is in Minnesota, and then the one that I'm really jazzed about is the Cascade Classic, the Killcliff Cascade Classic in Seattle, October the 10th and 11th, which is a 2-day event. 1 day is individual, the second day is team, which we will be featuring a CrossFit football.
I think we're going to be at that one, right?
Yeah, and it's cool because if you look at the events in the Pacific Northwest, there are no marquee events here. And our experience with like the Granite Games or the ECC in Boston that we sponsor, those events, you create those events and it gives the local affiliate community and the local CrossFit community something to take ownership in, and they can get behind. And that was why I wanted to have an event in Seattle. One, I live here, and two, was to create something really cool and really special for the local affiliate and athlete pool. And it's awesome. Like the whole community is getting behind it. I think the interest was so great. Well, what we didn't want to do was create an event with 1,000 athletes in it. So we whittled it down to what was manageable because we want the experience to be really special for the athletes. And so we did I think we had close to 1,000 people sign up for our online qualifier. We're doing 3 workouts for people to earn a spot to come and compete, and then we're bringing in some of our sponsored athletes. I think 6 games female athletes, and then another 6 males, and it's going to be awesome. We're going to try to pair up some of the games athletes and put them on teams with some local individuals. And then I got some of the Northwest regional athletes that went to the games last year and the year before. We created a team with them. And then some of the athletes that from Canada, Canada West, that went to the games last year, we created a team there.
That's cool.
So now we have like a Northwest team and a Canada team, like a Northwest region and a Canada West region team that can go head-to-head.
A spicy international drama.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not like trying to compete with, HQ or the Invitational or any of that stuff. That's not the purpose at all.
Right.
The point is just to create something that the local community can look forward to, and we'll be bringing in athletes from all over the country, and there'll be athletes traveling here from all over the country to compete in it, and just kind of do something. And it's funny with these events, I say we were doing it for the community, and some people would hear that and think, oh, it's trying to make money or raise money off of it. We actually lose our asses on these events. We like the thought of making money doing an event is comical at best. I mean, flying all of our games athletes and putting them up in hotels and all that stuff, and then the cost to rent the venue and everything, we lose our butts. But it's just something cool to get everybody in one place. We're gonna have a big, huge cookout on Friday. Cascade Farms, which is down South Washington. It's an organic farm. He's donating a bunch of food. John, the pork chops that I sent you that photo of the other day, like those came from his farm. He brought me a bunch.
I feel like I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Baker, I was going to tell you, thanks for tagging me in that. My personal, and I'm just telling you, my best experience with pork is just smoked garlic salt.
That's what we did.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. People are like, oh, what about recipe? I'm like, pork only needs a little bit of garlic salt, and if you have enough time, a dry brine is probably one of the best things to do. Just brine it, do like 6 to 12 hours of brine, and just pull it out, let it get to room temp, and then throw it on the smoker. So
yeah, I talked to Kelsey about that, and I was like, yeah. She's like, I called my dad and got a recipe from him, and I was like, yeah, well, I talked to John, and he gave me a recipe. And she's like, well, I want to go with what my dad said, and I was like, John's much bigger than your father. He obviously knows way more than your dad does about cooking pork chops. Like that's all he eats is meat.
Yeah, that logic is flawless. Yeah.
It absolutely.
Kelsey's dad's a big dude, isn't he?
No. No, John. I don't have any friends bigger than you, John.
For the record, Baker's looking around the room to compare Kelsey's dad to.
He's like 6'1".
He's like how many Killcliff cans tall is he?
He's a 1 can at a time guy. You're a 3 can at a time guy.
Dude, I was dying. I didn't realize that those cans look so small in my hands, and then people are like, that guy's got hands like toasters. I'm like, I don't even have big hands.
It's so funny. Who doesn't have big hands?
You do.
John?
John does.
Yeah. No, when I was at the Combine, I remember they went to measure my hands, and they were like, oh, you got little hands. You got to wear gloves when you play. And I was like, and then I was like, wait, I didn't think my hands were that small. And then the dude next to me had the largest hands that they'd ever measured. And the guy literally a XXX glove he couldn't even get over. And I'm like,
so John, you may not have long fingers, but your palm is like a 14-ounce fillet. I mean, it's multiple inches thick. Mm-hmm. It's bigger than any donut I've eaten.
Donuts. Yeah, but we're gonna have a CrossFit football presence there, so I think
Absolutely.
So that'd be awesome. Well,
yeah. And Baker was actually asking me how the CrossFit football total came to be what it was, and I think I'm sure that there might be a story behind it, but I think it's pretty standard power lifts plus our one dynamic version of the lift, which is the power clean. That's I guess the best indication of well-rounded power athlete type status. John, do you have any thing you want to add on that?
Who invented it?
Who invented the CrossFit football total?
So when CrossFit, I guess, approached me about doing CrossFit football, I had to sit down and create some real basic templates and start understanding some stuff about training beginners, and because I felt like that was my weakest point about training beginners, because the program that I did as a young kid was probably the worst programming for a beginner, because it was basically just singles and some some So a little bit of reps, but it was a straight up powerlifting program because I trained with these old power lifters, and they were all advanced lifters, and we just jumped into the group and, hey, work up to a single and get out. And I, not knowing anything about physiology at the time, and then realizing that like that training, while I got stronger, it could have been done a lot better. And I realized there were shortcomings. So when CrossFit approached me about doing CrossFit football, I knew I needed to really, almost go back to school a little bit and understand about how to train beginners. And so the one person that I know who works with beginners better than anybody on the planet, Mark Richtow, he has a book called Starting Strength, which is about training beginners. So I went out to Wichita Falls and hung out with Rick for a fair amount of time and really sat down and, what's amazing is you can look at like physiology, you can look at science, you can look at studies, and you can look at all of this stuff, but at the end of the day, simple anecdotal observation sometimes is some of the most insightful shit I've ever been around. And even like, where we've got, been really using the linear progression, I talked to Rip and I was like, hey, this basic linear progression you use, like, was this something Bill Starr came up with? And Rip was like, fuck no. This was something I observed in the gym that we realized that a relatively unadapted, untrained nervous system could add weight to the bar each training session. And like, we went through, kind of why it worked and intermuscular versus intramuscular coordination and how the whole thing kind of played out. And I went back and I, pulled out some Zazgorsky and some super training and went through and found all the passages on what he had observed of kids, beginning athletes training in his gym. So, we sat down and I put together, kind of, hey, this is what I want to do for my intermediate advanced templates. And, would it be cool if I took a version of Starting Strength of the linear progression, but kind of adapted to what I wanted to do it more than what you're doing. And so Rick kind of looked at it and said, oh, I think that looks good. And as we were kind of looking at it, I was like, well, this is how I want to cycle the program. This is it. And he goes, well, you're going to have a test. You need to have some form of like culmination for people to train. You need some form of like total type thing, like they had the CrossFit total, and the CrossFit total is a press, a deadlift, and a squat. And I was like, well, let's do a CrossFit football total, other than the fact that I would like to do a bench press and a power clean, because if you need to be able to pull heavy, you need to pull dynamic, you should be able to bench, you should be able to squat. So we kind of tailored a CrossFit football total into that as kind of a training stimulus, and more important, a training goal for the CrossFit football program. And I was like, that's great. I mean, I know it's going to be a grind for people to be able to put together 4 lifts. So I limited them to like 3 attempts, and you got a certain amount of time to finish. You got to do them in a certain order. And that's really how I was born, and we did it, and people really seem to like it. And there's been, a couple regionals before they became standardized that actually use the CrossFit football total. And it's always been a really good display because, you run into people that are great Ollie lifters that might not be able to clean as much, and can they squat, but can they bench? And it was very, very well-rounded, and people have really seemed to like it. So that's the short story.
Yeah, and through our large population, I guess call it sample size or test group, it's indicative of base level of strength, right? Yes. And just kind of what we use about, or the primary lifts that, someone's like, hey, am I strong? Well, you ask them, hey, how much do you weigh? And then what are your lifts through those categories? What is your squat? What is your deadlift? What is your bench press? What is your power clean?
Yeah, because
so that's like the ultimate baseline test.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, we don't use it as much with our beginners. So the reason that we kind of get away with before, originally the original template was written that we would have a CrossFit football total every 6 weeks. That became not as, and if you were to go back in the annals of the whole deal, that's how it kind of originally played out. But I started stretching out more and more and more, and the reason being is I didn't want beginners testing 1RMs. So as I got more adept at working with beginners, and we ran this program, I mean, everything you see in CrossFit football and Power Athlete and Field Strong and Jack Street and all the different programs we put out, if you don't know them, get on there and Google them right now and go with them, are actually tested programs that we have not only tested, evaluated, used, and seen great success, and then hence put them out. But that original program at the time, when I came to when I was in the process of putting CrossFit football together, I tested that amateur program on one of our young lifters, and I watched him go from a back squat of 165 pounds for a set of 5 in 20 weeks up to a single at 405. So he put 200 pounds in a squat in 20 weeks, and I think like week 19, he squatted 365 for a set of 5, and then I finally was like, let's work up to a 1RM. And so he didn't touch a 1RM until he got to 20 weeks. And the reason being is to really efficiently lift a 1RM, you need a very in-tune, well-trained, adapted nervous system where the whole body fires at once and you can really kind of push against the bar. And, for beginners that have that unadapted, untrained nervous system, 5 reps seems to really be pretty good. Now, I mean, we've used 4s, we've used 6s, we've even used 7s. 5 is just a really easy universal number, and we've done it with other things.
It is the shittiest number in the world.
Well, it's
God Almighty. I think
4 is the shittiest number.
We have a whole Oli program that Bob Takano and I put together based on 4s, and I grew to fucking hate 4s. With a passion, but there's something about a 5. I mean, we've done 7s, we've done 6s, but for some reason the 5 rep max, it's dependent on the athlete. It's somewhere around 85 to 90% of your 1RM is a true 5 rep max, which puts you at a high enough percentage to really kind of keep driving that adaptation. It's not so high that it's going to negatively affect you with, overloading the central nervous system with too many lifts over 90%. I mean, it really falls within this kind of like magic number that puts us exactly the percentage we're looking to rate at, and it's been very, very beneficial. Then we start kind of stripping it down, and so I think, to quote Mark Ripto, 5 is the most powerful number on the planet. That's what he told me once, and I laughed. I thought it was pretty hysterical. But ever since then, it was like 5s. We were sitting there drinking beers. He did a seminar at Balboa, and we were at this like little burger place that has these like $20 hamburgers, and like it's like a boutique craft beer deal that it's called Crow Burger. So I took Rip there, and there was something inherent, like disagreement, like there was something like worth fighting about the fact that they were charging $19.99 for a hamburger. And like Rip being from Wichita Falls is like, y'all pay $20 for a hamburger? Are you fucking shitting me? Like he was so fucking mad, and then they bring the beer over, and of course they weren't like 16-ounce pints; they were like 12-ounce glasses.
He lives in Texas?
No, this is in Newport Beach.
No, what I'm saying, Rip lives in Texas?
Yeah, he lives in Wichita Falls, which is about an hour north of Dallas.
That's normal behavior of a person from Texas.
Oh yeah, he's just like fucking outraged, and like the fact that they would charge $20 for a hamburger. He's like, it's a hamburger with ground beef. I'm like, yeah.
That's like when I lived in New York City, and I'd go to like the green market and stuff on the farmers market on Saturdays in the East Village, and they'd have venison for $20 a pound, and it's like,
are you shitting me?
Yeah, I was like, are you people insane? I wouldn't pay 50 cents for a pound of venison.
Rip raised a couple cows a couple years ago, and he has a pretty good plot of land, and he raised all these like 100% grass-fed cows, and like really like raised some really beautiful cows. Like drove up, got them, brought them back, and raised them up. And so he called me up, and he's like, hey, do you want one of my cows? I was like, yeah, I'll buy it, whatever you want. He's like, oh, you buy it, you pay for it, you raise it, and then just pay my processor. So the cows were ready. He took it out, and the guy called me, and I was like, you know what? I know that it's going to kill the volume of this thing, but I want you to hang them for like 40, 45 days. Normally they don't hang things for even 30 days. So we got some 40-day dry-aged deal. The guy packaged it up and put it on dry ice and overnighted it to me. And it was
Dude, I had a deer from Texas overnighted to me last year. Not cheap.
Well, it wasn't cheap, but the meat per pound was half as much as what I would pay at Whole Foods.
Oh yeah, we had some. We were bird hunting down in Bolivia 2 years ago, and had some grass-fed beef, local grass-fed beef down there, out of control. Like really, truly grass-fed beef. Like most people in this country, like have never had it. They don't understand it, and the meat is completely different. Grass-fed cattle, for meat stock, is out of this world.
Yeah, I think around here they say, like, to technically call, and I'm in like the Midwest, Chicago area, that you can sell beef and call it grass-fed beef if it like grazes in a grass pasture maybe a month out of a specific time.
Yeah,
they really freaking water that shit down as far as
that's like grass finished, and there's a lot of like kind of stuff. If it's certified grass fed, then what they have to do is actually have a number on the cow and they have to tie it. It's pretty involved because for Well Food Co. we had to do all that for the beef. But I was in Nicaragua, and I know this sounds random, but we went to Nicaragua with Rob Wolf and his wife. My wife and I did.
Amazing beef down there.
Oh, so we go to this beach resort, and they were like, there was a kitchen, so we're like, oh, let's drive to the town and we'll go to some like market, we'll buy a bunch of stuff. So we go into the market, Rob and I do, and there's all this like killer fruit. We go over to the meat counter, and all the meat, like the most expensive meat, was all like the fattiest meats. And over there, I like looked, I was like, well, obviously it was the tenderloin, the fillets. And I was like pointing to him like, how much for that? And the lady kind of like scoffed at me. It was like the equivalent of like 75 cents US a pound. And I bought like 6 of these like 4-pound like massive loins that came out to be like $9 or something. And we were like so excited. We like loaded them up. We were there like 6 days. We literally ate like 2 or 3 pounds of meat per meal of this like most amazing like fillet I've ever had. And we like asked them a little bit, and they were like, oh yeah, that's all locally raised, and like we drove by the farm where they get it all. I mean, it was like the cheapest thing for them to feed them was grass. They just kind of let them out to pasture.
My brother and I were we were duck hunting in northern Nicaragua, 2006 maybe 2007, and every lunch, every dinner we had was steak, and to this day, as far as the best food I've ever had on a hunting trip, it was that trip, and all we ate was beef every single meal. It was out of this world. So good.
Yeah, I mean, we had.
So rot really adds to the flavor. Going back to what you're saying, John, about that hanging that cow for 45 days.
Rot, as in rot?
As in, yeah, like the longer you let that meat just kind of like rot, it adds to the flavor.
So like when the proteins start to break down.
Rot is a very negative word.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of Gladiator. Remember the Russell Crowe Gladiator, not the old school boxing movie with Cuba Gooding Jr. If anybody out there didn't know that there was actually two Gladiator movies. All right. The first Gladiator movie was James Marshall and Cuba Gooding Jr. Let's just set the record straight, right? Are we all clear on that?
Yes,
so the second one was like Russell Crowe, right?
Yeah, break the hand in the forehead.
When Russell Crowe gets sold, that guy's like, your crops is rotten, and he goes, rot adds to the flavor.
So
right?
If you understand how to process meat, what they do is they dry age, where they hang it in an environment, and it actually ages the meat. And part of the, like the mold and that disintegration process. I mean, that's what dry aging is. It's actually the meat is disintegrating and like starting to decompose, and that's what adds to the flavor and like causes the meat to actually break down and soften.
Yeah.
We most places, by California law, I think the longest they can hang is like 21 days, because after that it's considered like
that's in a walk-in cooler. Like they're not.
Yeah. It's not like it's in a cool environment and they hang the meat. And but like if we were at Luke, where were we at?
Argentina.
Were we in Argentina?
Which one?
Best steaks in the world.
We went to a steakhouse that had 60-day dry age.
Where was that?
Yeah, I was there actually.
Was that you and I, Kelly?
Yeah, I think that was you and I. I can't remember where.
We have the one thing about anybody listening to us that has aspirations of potentially coming to work for Power Athlete or CrossFit Football.
The food.
The one thing we do is we eat. Like when we go some places, like Callie was, we went to Madrid, and Callie was like so happy. She was like, "Oh my God, I'm so happy you're here." She was like, "I know we're gonna find some amazing restaurants," and we absolutely fucking crushed it.
Yeah, if I was with Luke, we'd be searching.
Unless we travel with Vanna, we go to Chipotle, we get double rice, half meat, and it lasts the whole week.
Oh yeah, Callie and I, like one of the guys at our seminar in Madrid was like, is kind of a foodie, kind of local critic, set us up for this restaurant. So we go into this restaurant, like we don't even order. The guy like took our menus, just proceeds to bring this food. It was one of the fucking best meals I've ever had was in Madrid at this place. I mean, and we would have never known to walk in there. It just like looked like some little local place. I mean, the food, unreal.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. Guys, this podcast episode has really run the gamut. I wasn't expecting to be educated in so many like different niche topics. Definitely hunting is a huge chunk of this, so I will market this to all the potential hunters out there. But Baker, if people want to find out more about the competition, the Cascade Classic, how can they do that? Just find it, Google that shit.
Google that shit.
Okay.
It's worth a Google.
Nice. And And obviously, if people haven't heard or tried Killcliff, get yourself some. It should be literally at every convenience store.
Every
probably.
GNC, every vitamin shop. We're going into 400 Sam's Clubs here in about a month.
I was in like a Flying J or something, driving to South Dakota, and there was Killcliff in the gas station.
Yep.
You're everywhere, and for people like if you do purchase, remember that a huge part of that goes to the Navy SEAL Foundation, which these guys are big proponents for, and it's obviously a very worthwhile cause. But you guys, I think we're gonna have to wrap up because we're running like close to 2 hours now, and I know Baker's a busy man. His phone is going absolutely insane. So we definitely appreciate him taking the time, not only to meet in person to do this, but to spread the knowledge and the Baker love.
And my walkout song, if I had to pick one
if you
today,
had a walkout song, like walk out to the ring, walk out to obviously the powerlifting.
Harder Than You Think by Public Enemy.
Okay, all right, Public Enemy.
The song is Harder Than You Think by Public Enemy.
I didn't see that coming from you, but I don't know the song like right off the top of my head, but Public Enemy, that doesn't sound like something that I would imagine.
Country, I'm a big country music guy.
Okay, all right.
So I have enjoyed it. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Baker. It's great to chat, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Hopefully I will see you sooner.
We're going to arrange our hog trip.
Oh, fucking it.
All right, guys, take it easy.
Later.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Baker, you have to say bye.
Bye.
But like this.
Oh,
bye. Yeah, you heard it. Now it's time for you to empower your performance. Find out everything you need to know about Killcliff and the Navy SEAL Foundation by heading to www.killcliff.com. This little recovery drink is not just helping you test positive for awesome, but it's also helping the families of fallen SEALs recover in a much, much bigger way. If you'd like to become best friends with Baker, all you need to do is find him on social media. On Facebook, he's Baker Leavitt, and on Instagram, he's @BlackBaker. The Killcliff Cascade Classic is right around the corner on October 10th and 11th, so be sure to Google that if you want to come and spectate, or if you're interested in getting involved as a vendor or a judge or anything like that, just go ahead and check out that website. Again, Google Killcliff Cascade Classic to find out more details. Next week, we welcome Glenn Penley for episode 119. Until next time, bye!